While you sleep, someone is harvesting your mind. Not metaphorically, not in dreams, literally, in real time, through a network you never even knew existed. Every night at the same hour, millions of people connect, not to the internet, to an invisible field. Some call it the collective unconscious. Others, the domain of the archons. But the scientists who first discovered it called it one thing: the mind harvesting channel. Have you ever felt like your dreams weren't your own, like something was being inserted into your mind? Images too vivid, scenes too structured, and waking up, you're not sure if you slept or participated in something. In 1978, deep in a sealed lab somewhere in Central Europe, a secret experiment was conducted. Volunteers thought they were being tested for insomnia. In reality, their dreams were being broadcast, live. Dreams, in real time. Electrodes implanted in skulls, occult symbols carved into the walls. And a video feed no one was ever meant to see. There's no official record of this study. All archives were destroyed, except for one leaked reel, smuggled out by an anonymous source. On it, a man murmuring unknown names in his sleep, a woman speaking a language no one could recognize, a child describing events that hadn't happened yet. Coincidence? That same year, Carl Gustav Jung wrote privately about a foreign intrusion entering the psyche during dreams. He never spoke of it publicly, but his personal diary from 1942 remains deeply unsettling. The dream is not merely a bridge between worlds, it is a portal, and through it, something enters. Some who return are not who they were. Too poetic? Here's what Nikola Tesla wrote in 1935, on a note labeled, "Not for publication." If we could decode the waveforms of sleep, we'd uncover a map of the universe. But someone has already done that, and is using us as data carriers. You might think this sounds like a conspiracy. That's exactly how it's designed to sound, because if you understood what was truly happening, you'd never fall asleep again. Today, it's given a new name: cognitive echo mapping, or reflective mapping of consciousness. But the goal isn't therapy. The goal is extraction. To mine the mind. Emotions, archetypes, memories, everything that makes you you. Have you ever woken up feeling drained, as if something took from you, as if you had been somewhere but can't remember where? That's not just fatigue, it's transfer. You're not just dreaming, you're transmitting, and someone or something is receiving. Their goal isn't to destroy you, it's to archive you, to extract and file away fragments until you're needed again. Jung called this psychic recursion, looping fragments of self trapped in the dream field. Tesla called it soul signal hijacking. And both believed that at night, the mind becomes a broadcast tower. You're not just sleeping, you're streaming. But the real question is, who's watching? It all started with a simple call for volunteers, a standard medical form, a signature of consent, and silence. None of them knew they were being watched not just by doctors, but by others whose names were never listed in the files. That was the true nature of the project: to present it as a sleep deprivation study, while secretly testing a much more radical and dangerous hypothesis. In the mid-20th century, Carl Jung wrote in his private journals, "Sleep is not an escape from reality. It is a doorway one that opens us to the unconscious, and sometimes to things that are not ours at all." His writings often intersected with mystics and scientists who were kept away from public academic circles. One such scientist in 1958 proposed a theory that was dismissed as madness. We don't just sleep. We tune in to a frequency that makes consciousness vulnerable, It can be read and perhaps even harvested. He worked in a division that was later disbanded, with nearly all records destroyed except one box that survived in the archive of the Pittsburgh Research Center. On the lid, a handwritten label, Night Access. Inside were tapes, footage of subjects sleeping in sensor-equipped rooms, faint background noises like a radio tuning into hidden frequencies. On one tape, a voice can be heard. "He won't wake up. We're already with him." Doctors ignored it. They blamed a magnetic glitch, but that segment later vanished from the archive. Someone had cut it out. The experiment itself was straightforward on paper. Subjects were put to sleep in isolation chambers monitored with EEG sensors. But 6 to 7 minutes into sleep, strange anomalies began to appear. Brain activity would spike in some areas and completely shut down in others. And that's when a chilling pattern emerged. Regions linked to speech, emotions, and most disturbingly memory began acting as though the subject was awake. And communicating. With who? At first, scientists attributed this to dreams, then to hypnagogia. But one researcher, Dr. Altman, offered a different theory. He wrote, "Consciousness becomes open. It begins to transmit. Sleep isn't rest, it's broadcast." In old reports, one term stands out: nighttime mind harvesting. This was the first time the idea emerged that something external, non-biological, purely informational might be tapping into us during sleep. That in deep stages of rest, the mind emits not just dreams, but thought forms, clean signals, and those with the right tools might not only receive them, but use them. That's when the name Tesla appears in the archive. In one letter between experiment supervisors, there's a reference to the vibrational channel at 783 Hz, the Schumann resonance, Earth's frequency. Someone scribbled a note in the margin. Tesla warned, "If we understand frequency, we can hear what others can't. And if we amplify, we can take." Tesla believed the brain was a receiver, but he also wrote that dreams were not personal, they were collective. We are connected. What we dream is not ours. It is only signal. At this point, the experiment began to break down. Several subjects reported feeling a presence in the room just before sleep. One described it this way: like someone leaning in, listening, not breathing, not speaking, just waiting. 2 participants fled. One vanished. Another suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of REM sleep. The program was shut down officially. But off the record, it continued, moved from a university lab to a military facility under a new name. Why was Jung so important here? Because he was the first to suggest that, in sleep, the ego dissolves and something collective takes its place. If true, then sleep makes us part of a larger field, a field that could be listened to, or worse, used. Years later, rumors spread that the military began using this technology for behavioral prediction, that thoughts implanted during sleep had a higher chance of integration because they arrived not as commands, but as inner voice. The theory seemed insane, until one participant decades later began experiencing vivid, invasive images. When doctors couldn't explain them, they reopened the old tapes, but they were gone. Only one audio fragment survived. A man is heard whispering in his sleep, "I know you hear me. Give me my thoughts back." We still don't know how far the original experiment went, but if it was real, it means that while we sleep, something else wakes up, and maybe it sees through us. Carl Jung once said, "In dreams, we touch parts of the psyche that are not bound by time." He wasn't joking. Jung was one of the first to treat dreams not as random mental noise, but as gateways, access points to another layer of reality where a person doesn't just experience something, they become vulnerable. He believed that in the state of sleep, we lose conscious control over the ego and descend into the collective unconscious, a realm that cannot be measured with instruments, yet proves its existence through consequences. When Jung counseled patients with recurring nightmares, he began to notice a disturbing pattern. Their images were the same, regardless of culture, age, or belief. Faceless black figures, endless corridors, whispering through walls, clocks frozen at 11:11. He didn't publish those details, too strange even for his time. But in his personal notes, long hidden in private archives, he wrote, "Some dreams are not metaphors, they are contact. Through symbols, something knocks from the outside, not always with hostility, sometimes with a task." Jung believed dreams could be entry points, not into some other world, but into something adjacent, a realm where consciousnesses can connect, entangle, or even be harvested. Even more disturbing, during those same years, secret laboratories in the US and USSR were conducting experiments on sleep as a state of access. Some focused on neuroelectrical thought recording, where brain activity during REM sleep was projected onto oscilloscopes. Scientists expected to capture basic shapes: an apple, a house, a silhouette. Instead, the screens showed symbols, untraceable to language or logic. One engineer from the now declassified Project Labyrinth wrote, "During the night, we observed thought patterns being intercepted. The brainwaves began mimicking patterns that were not human, as if someone else was transmitting through the subject." Transmission. That word kept appearing, in lab notes, in secret reports, in mystical writings. Jung said, "The collective unconscious is not merely the memory of humanity. It is a network, broadcasting, receiving." Nikola Tesla, decades before EEG machines existed, stated that the human brain is an antenna, not a thinking machine, but a receiver of frequencies. He believed the mind could tune into fields we didn't yet understand. In one of his rare letters to the editor of New York American, Tesla wrote, "Everything vibrates. When man sleeps, his defenses fall. He becomes like an unencrypted radio, vulnerable, open, accessible." Later, in Tesla's lab on Fifth Avenue, diagrams were discovered of a device he called a phase synchronizer, an attempt to tune into the frequencies of a sleeping mind. But the project vanished. Funding evaporated overnight. The blueprints, gone. Who and why enters. In documents stored at Harvard's archives until the late 1990s, we find references to anonymous experiments on veterans with recurring nightmares. These subjects were shown specific symbol patterns before sleep, sequences that seemed almost archetypal. The result? They dreamed the same dreams. They used the same words. They drew the same images. Later, these sequences were labeled supercritical triggers, something that opens a channel, or opens the dreamer to a channel. Jung didn't know Tesla. Tesla didn't know Jung. But their ideas now converge into one chilling hypothesis. We are not alone in sleep. And if something can enter, it can also take. At night, when the body rests, the mind remains tense. Scientists call this state hypnagogia, the transition between wakefulness and sleep. But in Carl Jung's lost writings, something more disturbing appears. He believed this liminal state activated a foreign intelligence. Jung wrote that in this moment, the I no longer guards the entrance to the subconscious. It's like a hole in a fence. You're not fully asleep, but you're no longer in control of who comes in. He compared this state to ancient shamanic rituals, which allowed spirits to enter while the body was without will. In the 20th century, instead of spirits, something else arrived, quiet, invisible, but with the same goal, to penetrate. In notes labeled "For Private Archive Only," found among Jung's personal papers, he wrote, "Patients complain of the same thing, a sense of presence. At night, just before falling asleep, they feel someone nearby. Some hear a rustle, breathing, others see a silhouette. In the morning, they wake with the feeling that someone looked inside them." Jung wasn't alone in these observations. At the same time, in another part of the world, Nikola Tesla was conducting experiments on sleep and brainwave frequencies. He recorded how the brain, during specific night hours, began emitting faint yet stable signals, as if it was not only receiving information, but transmitting it. He claimed that between 2:00 and 4:00 a.m., a window opened, a biorhythmic portal through which one could peer. But not just peer harvest. In a rare 1933 publication, Tesla wrote, "The human brain is a radio transmitter. At night, when signals are weak, it can be listened to, synchronized, even copied. It's a matter of resonance." He never specified who might use this, but in one letter, addressed to an anonymous correspondent, he noted that experiments with brain frequencies were being conducted by unregulated hands. Tesla suspected that certain groups, not necessarily governments, were using low-frequency generators to infiltrate the minds of sleeping individuals, not to manipulate, but to collect thoughts, emotions, memories. He called it nocturnal consciousness harvesting. These archives were never published officially, but one of Tesla's engineers, who worked with him in his final years, claimed to have seen the device seemingly just a coil, but tuned to REM sleep frequencies. It operated without contact, like an antenna. When the engineer asked Tesla what it was for, Tesla replied, "To hear the dreams of those who can't hear themselves." Later, Jung wrote about strange fragments appearing in his dreams, scraps of other people's memories, places he had never visited, faces he had never seen. He called them archives of other souls. He began to suspect these images were not his, that someone or something was using him as a receiver during the night. In his final diary, there's a chilling line. "Sometimes I feel like a library. Someone is reading me at night." If this is true, then what lies beyond our understanding of dreams is not merely the unconscious but an infrastructure, an invisible system in which humans are not subjects but sources of data, of energy, of thought. Jung believed that consciousness was not a lamp but a projector, and in sleep, the projector turns inward. We are no longer the ones illuminating, we are the ones being scanned. He warned, "What you see in your dreams is not always yours. Sometimes it's what they show you. Sometimes it's what they take." That thought is terrifying, but it explains so much. Shared dreams among strangers, synchronized nightmares, the feeling of waking up empty, sleep as a tunnel, sleep as a channel, sleep as an access point. And then, a final clue from Tesla's correspondence with an unknown scientist in Prague. He wrote, "We're searching for proof of the others, but maybe the others found us long ago, while we sleep." Final twist, intended to leave chills and lingering unease. Jung and Tesla died without ever revealing their private archives. But one day, you'll wake up and realize something in your dream didn't belong to you. And it wasn't a coincidence, it was a trace left by someone who's already read you.